Hello, 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 beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of the USL show. We are back. Hey, it was only a week this time. We're doing great. Um, it is great to be back. We have a chock-loaded full show today. A whole lot of stuff that we need to go over. We have some signings going on. We are talking about surefire USL Hall of Famers and, just some other stuff along the way. And the reason we're bringing up the Hall of Famers today, the MLB kind of announced that they have 3 new Hall of Famers coming through. So we figured it'd be a good time to talk about Hall of Famers. And to the guy that left Ichiro off, shame on you. But that's all I'm going to say about that. John, how are you, buddy?
Doing well. Yeah, excited to be back actually on the week-to-week tempo, which has been rare for us over the winter.
Yeah, look, I am first going to go through our patron names because, hey, listen, our new co-host is brought to you by these patrons who make this all happen. So thank you so much to Ryan Smelter, Matt Cat Pule, Timothy Meadows, Andrew Towsley, All of the Hedgehog, Kunal Patel, MOS, NF Resh 30, Tim Knox, Rion Lacara, Stephen Howard, Jeremy Churchman, Albert Aguilar, Noah Telford, Michael Fuchs, Joshua Duder, John Fuller, Christopher Cohn, Aaron J., Aaron Anthony, or Frank Anthony, John Hunt, and Harry Austin. I almost made it through without any mess ups. I hope you can forgive me. But one person I hope that can definitely forgive me for bringing him into this absolute madness, Alex Ashton of League One Updater. Alex, buddy, how are you?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Welcome to whatever this is. Welcome to the whole thing.
This is.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm cold, but like everybody else around here. But yeah, other than that, doing well.
I feel like if we're going, you and I were talking about before the show about me just being really cold. I feel like nobody has anything on John living in New York, but it's all relative.
I've heard from our friends up in Wisconsin, and I'm kind of happy with my 13-degree weather here because it's not negative.
This is true.
I tried to go to the gym this morning and my mustache froze, so that's how you know it's cold. Yeah.
Only time that's ever happened to me was in Wisconsin.
Yeah, checks out.
I was in Minnesota a year or two ago, and it was like negative something, and nothing froze on me. I'm really confused on when that actually happens. Does it have to be snowing and for that to happen? I don't know. I did say because the one thing that they love to do in the South is look at all these northern states that are actually warmer than us right now. It's their favorite thing to do, and one of them was Portland, Oregon. And then a couple hours later, we find out that the Portland Pickles are bringing a soccer team to the USL, which that's really the only time I'm going to mention that. But I just needed everybody to know that the Portland Pickles are coming to the USL, which is the most important thing I think I could talk about today.
Not going to dispute that. Yeah.
It's fine. Well, look, we want to talk about a couple things. Now, we're going to go through our first topic, which is surefire USL Hall of Famers. Now, this is still a league that is growing. There's still a lot of history. And unfortunately for us, a lot of history pre-2010 is kind of lost. So when you're looking at guys who are from the USISL and before, some of your favorite players from way back then may not be mentioned. We are looking at this kind of modern era, basically whoever just said, maybe we should keep these stats. That sounds like a good idea. And I'm just going to go ahead and give you 2. Now, I asked the guys to give me 2, but I'm going to go ahead and give you 2. And I am just going to make it easy. I'm going to give myself the layups of all layups. How are you not going to start a USL Hall of Fame without Dane Kelly and Hugh Roberts II? The all-time leading goal scorer in USL history and the all-time minutes leader in USL history. Those seem like layups for me.
Well, and 2 guys who have done it in multiple levels as well. If you think about, Kelly, obviously, with the longtime holder of the USL Championship goals record, but both of them went down to the Charlotte Independence and did their thing in League One. So I think if we're talking about like that first ballot, everybody's voting for them kind of player, somebody who covers all the bases feels important. So I'm here for both of those.
Yeah, I have no arguments against either of those.
Also, John, we talked about earlier this year that we just assumed Dane Kelly was coming back, and then we have not seen him exist like in the slightest. We just assumed he was playing for Charlotte and then just didn't.
I don't know what his deal is. I'd love to see him back in the league. Like sometimes you just see a guy out for a year, so that'd be killer to have him back around. You figure that like the skill set he's got, that finishing instinct, he could kind of just show up and bag 8 to 10 goals for anybody, but you never know.
This is true.
Yeah, I
Well,
heard nothing on that. He did just kind of vanish.
so bizarre. For our new friend, Alex, who are your Hall of Fame guys? Now you can name both like I did, or you can just go with one and we keep it rolling. But who's your
So-
surefire Hall of Famer?
So being that I cover USL League One, I'm going to stick to some mostly exclusive USL League One, although I think one has been in the championship before. Both have played for Richmond. Emiliano Terzaghi. Got to go with, that's the obvious one. The other one I'm going to go with, since I have to name I'm going to name just two, Evan Lee.
Oh yeah.
He is Mr. USL League One, been with Greenville since the very beginning. Played with Richmond prior to that. And he's of the three longest tenured USL League One players who have been in the league since the league started. I think I had to pick one of those. I'm going to go with him. The other two are being Tyler Polak and Ualefi.
Yeah, for me, Evan Lee. I mean, obviously, you have his Richmond times when they were. I don't think it was the championship. I think it was like that USL Pro. They were technically D3 status, whatever, that weird limbo that they were in. But yeah, he was at FC Cincinnati because he played at Ohio Wesleyan. And then FC Cincinnati, Richmond, and then he goes to Greenville, which even though I watched him at Richmond first, he is just a Greenville Triumph player in my mind. Him getting the goal, or was he the one that got the goal or the assist in the playoff game against Omaha? I mean, just a guy that absolutely deserves success, and he's someone that absolutely belongs in that conversation.
And he's back this year.
Yeah.
He doesn't leave.
He figures to be kind of an important player in that midfield. Like they're adding everywhere else on that team, but they're trusting Lee and Chapa and everyone else to kind of hold it down. And I mean, you watch Evan Lee, you understand why. The guy is consistent even as he's getting up there in years.
What about you, John?
Yeah, so because like thematically this is supposed to be kind of related to the Baseball Hall of Fame thing, I was trying to loosely figure out, okay, like who's my Sabathia, who's my Ichiro out of this. In terms of Ichiro, I'm thinking somebody who he's not hitting the dingers. He's just consistent contact. He's fundamentals. He's fielding. Who's doing it at a high level, but maybe, I don't know, sinking under the radar a little bit. And for me, it's Brian Ownby. He's been he's another Richmond guy at one point, but he's been in the league since 2013, continually just knocking in 4 goals, 4 assists every single season. Coming off an injury and coming to return in 2025 feels like somebody who has defined the USL as it's really come up from the USL Pro era into modernity. And then I couldn't think of anything great for Sabathia, frankly, but you think about him as somebody who had that absolutely dominant spell like 2007 to 2010, but kind of kept tanking along for a couple of years after, like understanding the role. And for me, that's Canardo Forbes. Somebody who last season, I think, really took a back seat, but he's an undeniable USL legend, the all-time assist leaders. What he's done in Pittsburgh over the years is undeniable. So those would be my two to induct into this hypothetical first class for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, for Forbes, just to kind of start there. He's a guy, I mean, the joke at this point now is that he is going to go with Bob Lilly to Liverpool. Thank you, Ryan. Like he is just going to follow Bob Lilly everywhere. But I mean, isn't he at this point the all-time USL assist leader? I mean, he is unbelievably good. He's obviously taken that step back, but there's a reason why he doesn't leave Pittsburgh. Bob Lilly wants to have him around, and it's for a lot of reasons. That stalwart kind of player. When you are looking at, the guy who's fundamental, John, one of the things that really, I remember one of the first things I read by you that just completely reshaped the way I thought about the league is you did hockey awards for players, and he was your best defensive offensive player.
Mhm.
And if that does not describe the way that we think of OMB, I don't know what else does. I mean, he is just an absolute grinder out there. He does all the dirty work and then just somehow manages to bag goals when he needs to. When you talked about kind of that high peak and then just kind of rode a wave a little bit, I thought that you were going to stay in Louisville, and I thought you were going, well, kind of. I thought you were going to go with like a Chandler Hoffman type that for like 3-4 years was just absolutely flying close to the sun, and obviously kind of fizzled out at the end, which to be fair, CC didn't do. But I thought that might have been the lane you were going.
No, and that's a valid one. I considered Cameron Lancaster as well. Kind of sort of thought about Solomon Asante, but I needed somebody who's like, okay, yes, he has the like MVP, unbelievable, unmatched peak in Phoenix, but then he kind of takes on that leadership role last season for Las Vegas. So because I was doing my stupid like trying to draw a parallel thing, I skipped over Solo, but he would have been my guy.
Fair. I kind of want to know where you guys sit on two of these, because now we're getting a little bit past surefire Hall of Famers, but guys who have made their way. One of them I know into League One, the other one I don't think so. And it's guys that have made their way literally everywhere. Corey Herzog and Antoine Openo, right? They stayed forever. They went place to place. They feel like they were a part of every generation of the USL. But did they have the highs to get them into a USL Hall of Fame?
I don't know.
Yeah. And the crowd goes mild. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think with someone like Openo, I almost think of him as a Philadelphia Union player, even though that wasn't like the longest stretch he had. And there were so many years between like Reno and I think Tampa Bay for a little bit, Lou City. He ends with Detroit and Hartford. Somebody who was kind of all over the map and consistently a contributor, definitely. I tend to be, again, like tying it back to baseball, like a small hall kind of guy. He, to me, feels like somebody who would like Carlos Beltran it and be on the ballot for quite a while, but maybe not get over the line. And much love to Antoine Openo, who's always been very friendly when I've had the chance to talk to him. Corey Herzog, kind of the same deal, where, again, like at his peak, one of the best forwards in the league, and that Reno connection as well. But somebody who, like, if we're going for the upper crust, we're going for somebody who kind of left a stronger legacy. I don't know if he did that, which to me is kind of my own bias towards players who had a long spell with one team. That becomes more memorable. That feels like they've actually left a mark, even if that's probably poor thinking on my end. But I don't know. Hall of Fame is Hall of Fame for a reason. Like part of it is the perception, the memories you associate with the guy.
I had you kind of talking about the ballot. I had a ballot tie-in myself. A guy who at his absolute peak felt like a no-brainer, but at the end kind of left such a sour taste that it almost overshadows how good his career was. And this is my comparison to Andrew Jones, for whom my money is worth, is absolutely a Hall of Famer. I don't understand why he's not being voted in, whatever. Evan Newton, most clean sheets in league history, one of the highest highs we've ever seen. His time when he was splitting time with Spencer Ritchie in FC Cincinnati was amazing. His time that he had with the Republic was fantastic. His time with the Indy 11 was also fantastic. And then he goes to El Paso, and it just so happened to be at the same time as El Paso just died, pretty much. And Evan Newton was unfortunately blamed for a lot of that for the first few months. I mean, we all kind of have that memory of him being booed at home. And that was a shocking moment out of El Paso, a place that just didn't do that. Do we think that the end was sour enough to keep him out, or does the resume live up?
I think for my taste, he's probably in. And just because like what you mentioned with the clean sheet record, the years and years of success across the league, obviously a little bit of bias on my end because I fondly think back to really the last time Indy 11 was any good in the USL, if we're being quite honest. So yes, that was kind of a bad note, but that season started poorly, and then El Paso, despite missing the playoffs, like finished strong. And I think Newton was a big part of that rise that they had. So you can't let one thing at the end of a very successful career kind of mar the legacy. So he's in for me. But I think the goalkeeper spot is difficult in general because more than any other position, you'll see players move to MLS, you'll see players move to Europe. Like that feels like the most, I don't know, upward momentum available spot that you have on the pitch in the USL. Whereas like you've got a Forbes who's been here forever, even though he had MLS talent at a certain point, or you think about a number of other players in that same spot. And that's kind of what makes this an interesting challenge, because if you're too good, you're going to get that move and kind of disqualify yourself from this game.
Well, that was actually a great point, and I was wanting to bring that up with Alex specifically, where how often do we see? Did you know that this guy played in League One? I mean, Ricardo Pepi is obviously the kind of layup there. He did not have a USL Hall of Fame career, but it's arguably one of the best players to go through the USL. Another one is Alfonso Davies, who didn't get that many appearances when he was Whitecaps too. But still, he played in the USL, and we love to say this guy played in the USL, right? Alex, when you are looking at a league that is so young, obviously you mentioned Terzaghi, who, like his peak, and to be fair, he's still kind of in it. He was coming off an injured season and like picked up where he left off. But, you know, coming off of 2-3 straight golden boots, how do you measure up what a League One Hall of Fame
Yeah, like it was really I mean, it was easy to think of him because he's only played in League One in this country, and doesn't appear to be heading to the championship or anywhere else. Like he's comfortable thriving here. So he was more of an easy pick. But then, like, I was trying to think of a second one, and you know, it's very difficult for that reason, because you don't want those players to stay in the. I mean, obviously as a fan, it you know, you getting attached to them, but like, you know, that if they're good, they should be moving on, for the most part. That's why I went back to the you know, to look at the list of the longest serving USL one people, to pick for my second pick, because yeah, like, you know, like a Liam McKinnon last year blew through the league, and I don't want him to stay. I want him to move up.
Is that because you're a Richmond fan, or?
I would say the same thing if he was a Richmond kicker.
Fair. Yeah, I'm just curious what people in the chat would like to say about some under the radar Hall of Famer guys. I'm going to throw my guy who I used to hate viciously, Enzo Martinez. I want to throw him into the Hall of Famer. I mean, he's up there in top 10 in assists and goals, I think, at this point. Great player. Just a wonderful human as well, but that doesn't fully matter for a Hall of Fame, but kind of does. I don't know. But he would be another guy that I would vote in, but he doesn't seem like he's at the same level of people we talked about, like a, oh my gosh, like a Forbes or someone as such.
I think it's like the anti-defensive midfielder bias, because he's played that position for a lot of his career, or at least deeper in the midfield. And you see it with like awards ballots in all league teams as well, where and he has put up the goals and assists, but for someone who's not like constantly at the top of the Golden Boot leaderboard, I think it's easy to think, oh, was he that impactful? And somebody like Enzo obviously has been dominant at the USL level for years and years. And he's kind of got that extra like flair, kind of love to hate aspect to him that makes him stick out in the minds of fans in a way that like feels indelible relative to some of his other peers in the league. So somebody I love that you're bringing up, because I think he's perfect for this exercise.
And kind of a love to hate. I mean, he was really good, but I don't think Hall of Fame worthy. But maybe I'm having like East Coast bias going on here. A guy like Yuma was around forever. Everyone hated him in the West. Usually you don't become hated unless you're pretty good. I mean, that for my taste, on a Hall of Famer though.
I think he was in the league less than you might be thinking. Like, I don't think he even came over until 2019 or so. And that was when Lowry left Jacksonville and moved to El Paso, and he was just Mark Lowry's guy. But like somebody who played with Rayo OKC, and if we're expanding to like NASL counting towards the argument, you got to have like the meme potential of a guy who played for Rayo OKC in the mix. Like that means a lot to me personally as an original NASL sicko.
We got a good one with Austin Pack from Michael Fuchs in the chat. I mean, definitely building his case now that he's with Tormenta, can continue to build his case. But if he can keep his trajectory going, hard to see him not getting one of those votes. We got William Yambi. Alex, you can speak on him a little bit more, being a Richmond guy.
That's before my time.
Fair enough. Totally fair.
I haven't lived here that long.
We should have had Nicholas Murray on this one because he's the font of knowledge for this.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to the Austin Pack one. He also had a good season in the championship with Charlotte as well, along with his 2 seasons in USL League One. A lot of goaltenders that are like the top of the USL League One right now. I can't think of any others who had like particularly memorable seasons in the championship.
Yep.
Even if they're dominant here, but he's one of them who has had one good season there.
I'm trying to think now that you have me thinking about that. Brandon Miller, was he on the team that dropped down? Because I know he was with Charlotte until 21, maybe.
Yeah, you're beyond me on this one.
Yeah, I
do need to shout out with Austin Pack, by the way, since I'm playing this game, a former member of Puerto Rico FC in the NASL, which is newly relevant given what we're hearing about the possible Yadier Molina bad money investment into a Puerto Rican USL team.
People are saying.
Also,
the streets.
Yadier Molina, first ballot guy, right?
Well, I mean, as a Cubs fan, no, like that guy can just like never be seen again and be fine with me. But yeah, if I'm being intellectually honest, sure.
Fair enough. Let's see. Brandon Miller didn't know he retired after 21 season. Thank you, Nicholas. Appreciate you. I'm trying to think. Arguably the best defender of all time, still an active player. I mean, when you have 3 Defender of a Year awards going to you, Boris Lasso seems like a guy who should be a no-brainer, but has been injured for this last year. Went to give some to ball with Ronaldo Damas and kind of disappeared from the USL lexicon for a while. But there was a 5-year stretch where you could not beat Lasso in anything.
No, he's somebody who, like, you look at the peak, you look at those Defender of the Year awards that he's picked up. Really, the fact that, like, in the Cincinnati area in the USL, what he means to Tampa Bay, he's been kind of that pillar for communities. Another great shout for sure.
Any last Hall of Fame shouts before we move on to League One free agency?
No, but tweet at us if you've got more, because I'm sure we're embarrassing ourselves here.
Oh, of course we are. I mean, that's what I do.
Skeet at us. Do it on Blue Sky. Forget I said that.
I mean, with the number of players that come through these leagues, it's
yeah, a lot of players. And look, again, the one thing we love to do is to be guys who talk about just USL players. That you could just name a USL player and be like, oh man, what a wonderful time.
See, there we go. Brian Ownby, Hall of Famer bus in the chat. I called it top of the show.
Yeah, Fox, we already did it. Now, let's go ahead and move on. And one of the reasons we brought Alex on, other than, we wanted to have him in front of a microphone, is he is the League One updater. And we have his transaction tracker we are dropping in the chat, as we have been doing every single week. We are going on to League One kind of free agency. And when we talked about League One these last few weeks, really all the eyeballs have been on the expansion teams, because they're the ones that are having to make the most moves because they have to field a team. Unless you're Texoma, they don't have. They have a player. We know that now. We don't know who it is, but they might
Possibly
be
two.
spotted. Possibly
Ooh.
two. So there's that. When you are looking at these key signings, the ones that really just kind of shocked you or might have even flown under the radar to a lot of fans, Alex, which ones are you really looking at? Because I know I'm looking down at South Georgia Tormenta, and I am just getting big-eyed excited for them.
I mean, Austin Pack there is that was kind of a bombshell. I don't think anyone saw that coming.
No.
But I mean, yeah, like some other like impact signings around the league. Alexis Cerritos signing on with AV Alta. I think that's a really good one for them, for him. Good environment there. Charlotte, we're just very quickly moving on to Matt Levy, and he did not play very much last season, but when he did, he was outstanding. So that kind of made the Austin Pack move make a little bit more sense when they've got a protege waiting in the wings there. I think like you look at like Chattanooga and they don't have anybody announced, and it's notable for the players they've lost. So like pretty much all their goal scorers.
That was one thing we've talked about a lot, and Chattanooga is just fascinating to me because I mean, like, it is just mass exodus. It feels like bullying at this point. Like anybody who's ever scored a goal from them is just gone. Unbelievable.
And two of the top 3 went to Greenville together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just right up the road, right?
Yeah.
Down the road.
That way, like east.
Yeah.
They went eastward.
Always good to try to point on camera. That always works nicely.
Yeah, it's never failed me, never once. Just kind of looking through, and again, I'm checking out USL League One Updaters, USL League One 2025 transaction tracker. God bless to both John and Alex for putting together transaction trackers. I need them; they are needed, absolutely. So thank you for that.
It's what I like.
One of the
say.
ones
it's a lot of work and little reward, so I'm sure it's fun for both of us.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. One of the ones that kind of got love but didn't was into Forward Madison, Jackson Dietrich. I thought that was a huge move.
Yeah, he's a very like underrated solid player. That's good for them. Let me see where I have him placed on the. Yeah, he's a defensive mid. Right there alongside John Murphy. Like that's a solid duo right there.
Yeah, and you think about that team losing Villalobos to AV Alta as well. Bringing Dietrich in kind of gives you a different look, just given kind of the passing profile, the fact that he's like a converted winger, Dietrich. That's going to be an interesting combo for Madison. I kind of like the little bit of extra flair they're going to get in the middle because of it. Obviously, it's never good to lose somebody who was on the all-league team in Villalobos, but I don't know. Dietrich has that instinct. He's got that intelligence to his game that he should be a really strong fit up in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, because I know what my opinion is, sorta. I say this, it changes literally every day, depending around 6 a.m. on when Naples decides to announce a team or announce a player. Which League One team, expansion team, is the one catching your eye right now, saying like who's kind of the leader of the pack? Because to me, all 3 of them who have announced players are kind of neck and neck for me.
Yeah, same. I'm big on Westchester. I think they kind of have jumped a little bit ahead in the last couple of days with Stephen Payne and Joel Johnson. But then then Naples and AV are kind of like right there behind them. With looking at Naples bringing in Lalo Delgado, Jake Dengler, Breck Evans, like that's a solid back line. They just need some strikers, and then AV bringing in a lot of veterans from the league, kind of like almost a mini all-star.
Yeah. Ditto on Westchester, like what you see in that back line with Payne, and then guys in Kamar Lawrence and Indra Baptiste who have like legit MLS and overseas experience.
Yep.
So many of those Dutch imports who I'm not going to pretend like I know a thing about, but seem like they're going to be really good. This team isn't playing around in terms of like the relative star power as much as you can get in the USL. So they feel like they're making the biggest statement. Alta, though, like you look at that defense with what they've got with Master Antonio, someone like Elijah Martin, who's like a genuine top end USL championship player when he's fit. If he can come back after kind of a lost season in El Paso and do his thing, one of the best players in the league for my taste. So tons of upside there. Naples, I like the defense. I have big questions about the goal scoring and what they're doing up front. It's a lot of players who look like they could be interesting, but maybe nobody who's like proven that they can do it at the pro level. Like some of the guys they've signed out of IU, Weiss and Henderlong, look like they're good. Jaden Nonan, we've seen flashes from. Which of those players is going to do it when it comes to game day and really become the talisman for this team is the question I have there.
Yeah, Jaden Nonan he was really good at Madison his first year. He was nominated for Young Player of the Year, and then was one of the, I guess, kind of for League One high-profile signings at Lexington, followed by a whole bunch of other high-profile signings at Lexington. Kind of got lost in that depth chart of mismanaged talent, and then suddenly pops back up in Naples. So maybe it's a good change of scenery to get, start providing more of those assists that he was really good at providing in Madison.
I want to look at, I mentioned 3 out of 4. It's really 4 out of 5, but one of them, Hearts of Pine, is really interesting, where you're looking at just 2 guys that have USL experience. The rest of them have gone the MLS2 route and young college players, right? And I know they had their open tryouts, one for Mainers. Is that what they're called? Mainers, maybe? Yeah,
Yes.
cool. Look at me go. And then just an out and out open tryout. And clearly guys at those open tryouts really made an impression on, their coaching staff and whatnot. But when you're joining a league and not filling up your talent pool with players of that league, does that not feel super risky to you, or am I just completely overthinking it?
Yeah, there's, it's a lot of questions there. Bold moves. Let's see if it works out. Let's see. I'm looking at their list now. They brought in Patrick Langlois from Northern Colorado, and Mikey Lopez, who I think he was injured most of last season, right?
Mikey was out for the entire year. Towards Achilles in the first day of training.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a lot of questions there. Like one of those, like, let's wait and see what happens. Ollie Wright, I like that signing. I think that's a really solid one. That was one of the bigger names from MLS Next Pro free agency that they were able to pick up. I know a lot of teams were probably looking at him. He had like double-digit assists, I think, with Huntsville.
Yeah, I mean, huge standout when he was in the championship a couple of years back as well as a younger player.
Yeah, he is. I mean, everything that you kind of see from Wright, both at MLS2 level and when he was in college, he really is a number 10's number 10. I know some people were kind of talking about, well, was he going to do defensively for you? Not his problem. He was there to pass ball, score goals. Like not his monkey, not his circus. He goes forward. And when you're looking for right now, you're still kind of looking for goal scorers, known goal scorers in this Hearts of Pine team. Not a bad guy to build around when you're looking at that attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you made the comment about like building a team that doesn't have a lot of League One experience. Hashtag plug. I've got an interview with the folks from Westchester coming out at some point soon. And they kind of have it as a point of pride that they're only going to have 4 or 5 guys with League One experience because they think they're building a team that could compete in the championship. Portland seems to be kind of going like, I don't want to say the opposite route, but they're kind of mining the depths for players who have gone unseen, some of the local talent that hasn't got a shot. It's a different approach, but it's no less valid. And I'm excited to see how it comes out and how this team really comes together and coalesces, but then reps that area specifically.
Well, we're going to have some conversations coming out about Hearts of Pine in the next few weeks. We'll be having conversations about them very soon. About the teams that have been around, I kind of mentioned South Georgia. What about some other teams that have really kind of caught your eye in terms of what they've added? Because last week we talked about Dom Casciato. I said them just locking him up was an offseason win. They have already done everything that they need to do this offseason for my liking, is just lock that man up. And they did. What about other teams around the league? And your top of the tops, when you're looking at a Union Omaha, what can they do really to improve? Obviously, they've lost talent. They've gone elsewhere. But even with them losing talent, their backups weren't that far off.
No, there was that was a team that could score from just about anywhere. They lost Dos Santos, and I believe they're losing Dolabella. But I would never bet against Dom Casciato. And if we're looking at the top 3 teams in the league this season as of right now, Omaha's got to be up there at that top 3. Gary Green, don't put me on blast again because I said that Madison is one of the other ones. But then, and Greenville, those are my top 3 based on, past season performance and what they've been able to add and retain from those seasons. Omaha somehow retaining Joe Gallardo for another year. Did not really expect that, but good for them. He's one of the best players in the league, and they're gonna find somebody to replace Dos Santos, somebody to replace Dolabella, and putting them around Gallardo. Like that's, you can't really bet against that.
Yeah, there's one team, John, in your backfield article, you had mentioned you thought was going to win it all for your predictions. And again, hey, check out the backfield article. There's a lot of good predictions. Spend money. If you want good journalism, spend money on it, dang it. Don't just say paywall and move on. Spend money on it. It's not that much. I'm a teacher and I can afford it. Shame on you.
I pay as well.
But there's a team that we haven't mentioned yet that you do have winning League One next year, at least the playoffs. Do you want to talk about that, or do you want to keep it hidden behind the paywall that people should buy?
Yeah, people should buy. Keep in mind, you'll get the full reasoning why written in like considerate words rather than me just blabbering on a podcast, which is always a plus. But it's the Spokane Velocity, who made that run to the title game last year, brought back 13 players from that team. There's not really going to be a drop-off. And I think the crux of the argument I'm making there is there were kind of some ups and downs. There was a little bit of experimentation philosophically and tactically that we got from Lee Wiedemann there. But by playoff time, it became that sort of 4-4-2 with Luis Heel dropping off the main striker. They were a little bit less hell-bent on having the ball all the time, but still like they had the pressing figured out. They were beating good teams when push came to shove. If they add a couple pieces around the edges, you can really see the Velocity making that push and competing in the regular season and doing the job in the playoffs.
Yeah, and they kept the core that won in the playoffs. They
Absolutely.
they shed everyone who like really wasn't, that impactful towards the end of the season, and kept that core that went in there and dominated Northern Colorado. And
yeah, and nobody else dominated Northern Colorado. Like that's
Yeah.
a big deal. Yeah.
after losing or going on a 7-match winless streak, fell backwards into the playoffs and did that. Like that's, I'm big on Javier Martin.
Yeah.
Right back. I think he had a breakout season in 2024, and I think he's going to end up a young superstar in the league that will probably be making some moves in the next couple of years.
Kind of speaking of free agents that are left, and they're kind of League One free agents, sorta. Like still the guys from NOCO that are available. Apparently, Howard is in the Danish first tier, which my dreams of Howard to
Serbian, I
Birmingham are
believe.
dead. Serbia.
I think he went to
Thank
Serbia.
you. Yeah, those dreams are dead for me. So
You and a lot of
whatever,
others had that dream.
who doesn't want the 6'5" striker that can somehow dribble off the pitch? It does not make sense. What a freak.
That's like the recruitment of the year was Iman Zayed digging him up.
No doubt.
But that's a free agent right there, Zayed. Joining really 3 head coaching free agents, Zayed, Briggs, and Marcina, who are just out there. And we know that for sure Zayed is on the hunt for a job. Like, we do know that for sure. We haven't heard anything about Briggs or Marcina, but the USL jobs are all taken at this point, unless Miami hasn't announced something.
Correct.
But
yeah.
Do we see any of these guys willing to go down to a Miami? Granted, they just signed Bolo Akinyode. That means something. And that's a great player to build around. But if you're Mark Briggs, even Zayed, or Alan Marcina, are you really trying to build around a defensive midfielder and a right back and build the rest from scratch?
Probably not. Just as an answer to that question. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It just feels like it's hard for me to say, but I feel like a lot of teams who had coaching vacancies messed up. But
I think messed up is strong. And I think that it's easy, like you see in the NFL and the NBA, it's almost this roulette wheel or this carousel where it's the same 30 guys swapping deck chairs every single time that a vacancy opens up. So I think it's refreshing to see so many clubs kind of think outside the box a little bit, like San Antonio getting Carlos Lamosa, Phoenix going Pamudu Ka. The fact that teams are getting original with it is promising to see, even at the League One level, like what we're seeing with Naples going to Chicago House's manager. Like that's original thinking rather than just recycling the same 60-plus-year-old white guys. So I'm here for it in general.
Fair enough. Let's go to the championship, why don't we? I already kind of teed up Bolo Akinyode. They kind of parted ways. He parted ways with El Paso, goes back to Miami. I kind of put it out there and was like, hey, either Miami's building something that we don't really know about yet, or Miami's spending money again. And either way, that's a good sign for the Miami FC, because a guy like Bolu, while it didn't work in El Paso, nothing worked in El Paso. And it's hard to tell if that is his time is kind of going on the decline, or, well, if he was just playing for El Paso. And I don't know which one it is, but for him to go to Miami, I feel like that says a lot about what they have at least promised him that they can be.
I think the thing with the El Paso move, he's somebody who I think of is best used as a number 6, like pair him in the pivot or put him in the middle of a 4-3-3 and kind of let the players around him cook and have that freedom to push forward. The Locomotive signed him to be a center back. That didn't really work out for reasons outside of his control, just given how dysfunctional that back line was, given the coaching change they had early in the year. Miami, I think it's notable, announced him as a center back again. You figure that with him and Dalton Knutson back, that's going to be the core of their back line for next season. Does it work? Time will tell. I think Akinyode is someone who certainly has the talent to do that job. Everything you hear about him is that he's the nicest guy and can really fit in and set the tempo, set the tone for that changing room. So I think to bring him back to Miami bring back somebody who the fans know, who has a reputation across the USL, tends to be a really good sign for where they're heading this offseason. And hey, I've been critical, so good to see them finally doing something that I think is pretty universally getting some praise.
Kind of someone else who has proved to be a very good like number 6 in this league. Osu going over to Charleston. I mean, they had the best holding midfielder in the league with Aaron Malloy, and they went and got arguably the second best. I'm not trying to suggest that Ben Pierman's going to be parking the bus anytime soon, because I'm sure somehow this is going to lead to Malloy going even farther up the pitch and something gross. It's hard for me to see how it's going to fit in the lineup because that midfield is already so stacked. But maybe I'm just not thinking of something.
I mean, you think about the combination they've got in the pivot. Typically, like the first choice would have been Chris Allen and Aaron Malloy. You figure that means Chris Allen is going to drop out of the team. But I think the reality with the Battery is that Ben Pierman is always pretty willing to kind of move players around, experiment positionally, but also just rotate his team. And I think while you're right to characterize both Hosu and Aaron Malloy as holding midfielders in terms of position, both of them have such like offensive flair. They know when and how to get forward. They're very complete players. Like they do the defensive job, but that's kind of side B to their other talents. And they're pretty much polar opposites, like flip sides of the coin in terms of what they offer. Malloy, very much that incisive pinpoint passer. He really is going to set the tempo. He knows when to sit deep and play quarterback, but he can push forward and almost become like an extra number 10. Husu, by comparison, is pretty much like all dribbling, all power. He knows how to play those quick 1-2s, push forward. He can also hit a long ball, but it's a little bit less of the kind of deft skills and more of the ball recoveries, more of the physicality. Together as a pair, they make a ton of sense to me at the base of the midfield for this team. And I think it is a real like strong addition to say, listen, we're losing Markanek, but we filled out the attacking line and our midfield is undeniably the best thing in the entire league. So statement of intent from the Battery yet again.
And with that, let's pivot a little bit out west with the statement of intent. Panos Armonakis is an Oakland root. And oh my God, arguably the best free agent left on the market is going to the Roots. We had questioned for a long time if what they were going to be doing is working. Like when your big signing is Tyler Gibson, cool. What does that mean? Panos completely reshapes how you view this offseason for them. And then the very next day, they have a brand new signing as well, where they get Mohammed, who is a really good right back New Mexico. He was really, really good there as well. Back-to-back days, Oakland really shows that they mean business. But, I mean, headlines are going to be Panos, as they should be.
Yeah, well, I mean, Panos obviously like the headline for a reason, but I think it's the fact that that's probably going to be the starting right side for Oakland is Armonakis and Abdi Mohammed. And Mohammed is somebody who, like statistically, maybe doesn't light it up in every single area. he was asked to get forward quite a bit for New Mexico, and that was a very possessive New Mexico team as well, where he spent a lot of time making those off-ball runs in the final third, trying to open space for teammates, kind of not taking the glory on his own. But you look at like the crossing accuracy over the years, the touches in the opposing box, there's a real sharp edge to his game that's going to force defensive lines to kind of compress and push back and give Panos that much more time to pick out passes, to be incisive. Armenakis is the perfect fit for Oakland. Like, this is a team that was begging to get somebody who could break teams down in the final third. You really can't get somebody who's more inventive at doing so than Armenakis. He can be a number 10. He's often played as kind of this inverted right winger at other stops in the league. Honestly, like, there couldn't have been a better fit from the current free agent list with what the Roots needed. And again, like, this is another team where I've been critical of some of their offseason strategies so far, but adding those two players really fits the bill for what was missing for Gavin Clinton late last season. And it's exciting for this team to finally look like they're taking the steps to be fully competitive at the Coliseum.
I'm trying to think. Has there been any League One to championship moves in the last week or so?
The last week, Stefan Lukic from Chattanooga signed with Tulsa. Nico Brown was announced as a returning to Lexington. I guess that technically counts.
Yeah.
I think those are the only two in the last week.
Yeah, let's talk about Lukic because we kind of talked about him last week, but really dive in just in general with what Tulsa's doing. Tulsa is building an interesting roster right now that I like, but I'm also confused by. Where you have Sissoko, which is obviously a Soul signing. He is a guy that's following from Memphis with Soul, and then you have Owen Dom, who was great. You have El Medkar, Batista was great, but Lukic was the guy who really felt like he might be a difference maker for this team in the midfield, but I don't know if he's going to be their starter. Granted, this could be, again, a little bit of Chattanooga stink on him, but I didn't really feel like he lit up the league in the way that you expect for the jump up for him to be an immediate starter. It feels like he might be more of the sub off the bench, but maybe I'm just remembering how, frankly, bad the Red Wolves were towards the end of the season.
Yeah, he was a bright spot on that team. I'll give him that. I think that's what earned him that promotion. But yeah, like, as far as his ability to start at the championship level, that'll leave that one up to you guys.
I mean, Tulsa, it's interesting because I think I wrote about them recently, and I was pretty convinced they were just going to run back the back four that we saw from most of last year. Given what they've added defensively with now A.B. Sissoko on top of Dallas Pierre and on top of Lamar Batista, you could see that team just like rolling with three center backs. We even saw Patrick Segrist like play a little bit of that left center back spot at the end of last season. If they do so, I think Lukic could also be like a kind of big little combination forward at top of like a 3-5-2. He's got the flexibility to do that, to play on the wing. I think that jack of all trades aspect that he brings to the table a little bit is going to be useful if he wants to earn minutes. Like, he might never be the guy who's nailed on first team on the team sheet, but he has that utility in multiple scenarios that's going to make him a difference maker there.
And because I just want to talk about it because it happened recently, Stephen Turnbull on a transfer to Birmingham, really solidifying the roster in Birmingham where they can put out a starting 11 at this point, and it looks fairly respectable. I have my thoughts, but I do want to hear yours first just so I can temper my own expectations.
So about midway through last season, and I don't remember exactly, we were trying to play the game of like name the mid-season USL Championship best 11, and we were like seriously considering Stephen Turnbull to be one of those players. That's what Birmingham could be getting when they're signing somebody of that caliber. Obviously, as the season wore on, he may have had a knock, but he definitely fell out of the starting lineup down the stretch. And they decided, hey, Frank Nodarce is going to move over from center back. That's the way forward. But take nothing away from Turnbull, who's an excellent player, did well with NYCFC too previously, did excellently at the start of last season. I think he played as a wingback with Rhode Island. He's a player with the physicality, with the size, the skill set to do the job in a more traditional right back role as well. He feels like a complete player that kind of fits the vibe for Birmingham in a way that's meaningful. So I think that's a massive signing for them. But I also think on the Rhode Island side of things, like you know what Nodarce can do at right wing back. You signed Danny Rovira, who's somebody who's a veteran who can fill that spot just in case. I feel like we've probably got one or two more defensive moves coming from them. But overall, I think this is something that makes a lot of sense for both teams and sets Turnbull up to succeed.
And this is not me putting out any kind of transfer fee because I don't know. But I do know there were some Rhode Island fans who were kind of hurt because he was a fan favorite. And a couple things that I want to remind people of. Interleague transfers are not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. One of the few that we've actually seen a published fee for was actually Bolo Akinyote a few years ago, where it was reported $15,000 from Birmingham to Miami. $15,000 doesn't sound like a lot of money unless you want to put it into my account. I will take that. But the thing is that if you are looking at one of the standard interleague transfers these days, I mean, realistically, you're looking at anywhere from $5,000, $10,000 to about $50,000, unless you are Goodman, who fetched a good bit of cash. Shout out Louisville for being rich. And if you look at $50,000, that pays for a league minimum player twice. That's a player fresh out of college. You can pay two of those guys for a full season. So while that doesn't sound like a lot of money, again, this is not me saying that is his transfer value. I'm just telling you, if they paid for that $50,000 or somewhere along the lines, that pays for a young player that you might be able to sell on later. That pays for that 16-year-old who wants to go pro, that wants to come to your club. That might pay 2 years of his wages before you sell him on for $500,000. It's just kind of the way it works. It's kind of a no-brainer. As for Turnbull, I think that he is easily the best fullback we've had since Johnny Dean. I think that Legion fans got very used to seeing Johnny Dean, and now everybody has to be Johnny Dean or else they're not good enough, and that is a ridiculously high standard to try to live up to. That, frankly, the fact that Johnny stuck around for 3 years, I think we got insanely spoiled by, because that should not have happened. I think he's the closest thing that we could possibly see to a Johnny Dean. What he was able to do in the attack and also get back into defense, he was able to do both. He was a guy that was able to track back and go forward. He was a guy who was a real deal threat at the back post if they wanted to put some crosses in. He was someone who was a danger to score, but he was also someone who could really lock down that defensive right-hand side if need be. I think that this move sets up Legion to possibly move to a back three, where you could have Suarez, the new 19-year-old. He came through Sacramento a few years back. You also have Fanuel Kavita, and if you want, you could put an AJ Patterson or Jake Roof back there and be very serviceable at center back themselves. And it would also allow you to let a Turnbull play that wing back / even like right mid and put Dawson McCartney on the left. I feel like Turnbull gives them a little bit more flexibility than they would have had if they went for just another standard fullback. And if there's anything that we know about Tom Sohn, is that he likes players who can play a little bit of everywhere. And Turnbull fits the bill for that. I think it's a fantastic signing for Legion and really rounds out what we're seeing out of this, at least starting 11.
No, for sure. And I mean, you mentioned the back three, like McCartney, Mensah, there's flexibility of who you want at the wingback spot, depending on the kind of, I don't know, the sensation you're trying to get out of the left wingback. I think what I like so much about having Patterson and having Thiago Suarez as those wide outside backs in a back three potentially is the technique they bring. Like both of them are kind of plus passers at that position in a way that makes sense. And I think was my primary concern about this team when Alex Cronale left. But yeah, big moves for Birmingham, and I'm pretty much liking a lot of their business so far.
Kind of the last ones that I really want to hit on before we finish up for the night is where actually Alex Cronale ended up. I am loving San Antonio's build early on. They feel like that defensive core that they kind of lost from their championship season, they feel like they have finally rebuilt that defensive core. I love what San Antonio's doing at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Swahi who signed either today or yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And the aforementioned Alex Cronale as well. Like that paired with Mitchell Tainer, it's a little bit of a different look for San Antonio, who's kind of prioritized guys who want to, I mean, they're aggressive certainly, but like lots of clearances, like lots of blocks, just kind of putting the ball along. Someone like Cronale especially is, I mean, he tends to linger on the ball a little bit more and try to pick out those passes. Tainer certainly has that ability, even if that's not been his role traditionally. And I think Swahi brings the veteran experience and kind of sit between them, provide that little bit of balance, but he knows how to circulate. He's been in the Lou City system in the past. There's more work to be done, certainly upfield. Like you see a signing like Dmitry Erefeev, that teenager from Dynamo Moskva, somebody who certainly has a lot of upside and you think is going to be big down the line, maybe not in 2025. But again, like Juan Agadelo's back, Jake LaCava's back, Jorge Hernandez is holding it down. The core pieces are here. And I think the question becomes, what does Carlos Lamosa try to do with this team? Like if it's a back three, if it's those players kind of in the mix, is it too similar to what Alan Marcina is doing? Do we maybe see one of the center backs kind of take a back seat as we're trying to change up formations just for the sake of something new and different? And I think the versatility, kind of in the same way as Birmingham, is a real asset for this team. Like the San Antonio we see on opening day will look fundamentally different from the one we're seeing in July and August. But yeah, exciting moves. And I think they've set themselves up well to compete in the West and get back into the postseason.
I'm going to go to one question in the chat. And, you know, Julian is asking on behalf of the Charleston Battery. First off, you are so selfish. You don't need any more. Stop. But, you know, basically, is there any attackers that Charleston should sign? It feels like they have a lot of depth pieces, but not a lot. You're fine. But I do want to ask this question because there are some good strikers that are on just kind of on the free agency. And I have two that one of them feels dumb because it will never happen, but I'm going to say it anyway. Augie come home.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Yeah.
Augie come home, maybe. The other one, I was going to go League One route, and I'm just wondering because they really don't have a big body in that final third. Christian Chaney.
I was going to say the same
still
thing.
My pick. Yeah.
Yep. I think we're all on the same page on that one.
I granted, I don't think Chaney would start, but maybe.
Not over MD Myers, given what we saw from Myers last year. But I mean, hey, Ben Pierman just decided Jackson Conway's our playoff starter, even though Myers was hot all season. So I think Chaney would come in with the assurance of, if you come in, you practice hard, you do the job, anything can happen. And he's certainly got the talent to make the jump. So I think he'd be awesome.
Danny Trejo to Charleston would make me throw up.
If Charleston got Danny Trejo, the rest of the league should just quit, honestly.
Is Charleston the new Los Angeles Dodgers? People are asking. But, Alex, other than Christian Chaney, is there another forward on the market that I'm kind of overlooking that maybe a championship team should give a look at?
How about Pedro Dolabella?
Yeah.
Oh, that is.
And Liam
I thought they
McKinnon.
announced him.
Both of those
Yeah.
are
Well,
technically
Liam McKinnon,
available.
Yeah,
Theoretically.
emphasis on the technically. Yeah.
in theory, he's available. I really thought they announced Pedro was back.
No.
Did they just repost things, just constantly repost things that he's in? Just
The league, I think, has been posting things with him, but no, he's not back with Omaha. Joe Gallardo was their last announcement.
so interesting.
One more name.
Okay.
Just a wild card here. South Georgia Tormenta and Pedro Fonseca. As a one to throw out there for, maybe a value promotion for a championship team looking for an attacker.
I do like it. That's fun. That's a fun one. All right. What about anything else? Any other signings that we did not go over that you really want to get off, either one of you?
I got to pull up my tracker because it's all just brain fog at this point, if we're being dead honest.
Sure. I mean, I will say probably soon or next week will probably be a Super League, because Super League has just been firing off signings like crazy. So we might pull another or bring in a guest person to really dive into the Super League, but there's been some good signings there. But we will get into that in due time. How about those final signings that we should talk about?
I'm going to say one for USL League One. I like that Knoxville brought back Tequila and Zero Costas. That's a duo that has the potential to be very scary in this league. If the rest of Knoxville's offense is put together in this offseason.
100%. That combination was dynamite. As long as they keep the defense clicking and let those two cook, that's going to be a strong playoff level Knoxville team again. So love to see that consolidation.
It appears their defense is largely intact, except for Jalen Kressler is leaving. But other than that, their defense should be solid, and they just need that extra push to actually be an offensive team.
John?
Yeah, well, we've got Andy in the chat yelling all about OC players. So rest assured, I was going to talk about Grayson Duty anyway. Somebody who I think was really impressive for the way he came into Las Vegas, immediately getting minutes at left back, at right back, in what was a very technical system, and was killing the game. Elite dribbling numbers, elite passing numbers. Somebody who I think kind of fits the style that Danny Stone was trying to implement late in the season for Orange County. Feels like a dynamite replacement for Owen Lamb, and that's big shoes to fill, certainly, but Duty feels like he's got the potential to fill it.
Traeger was a good one, but that was a while back. We already kind of talked about Traeger. Sergio Rivas
as well. Real quick with Andy on the Usman Silla. I don't know how he plays, frankly. Assuming Bryce Jamison gets sold, they still got Dunbar, they still got Zubac and Hegart and Traeger. I probably already said. They've got more attackers on the way. That's a packed Orange County team right now. So love to have somebody who was a coveted piece for the Houston Dynamo at one point, but wealth of riches right now. So curious to see how Stone balances it.
And we got the Sergio Rivas. Anything? Okay.
Somebody should sign him. He's a great player, but yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Well, that I believe is that for this week on the USL show. Alex, this is your first time through, so we're going to give you a little bit of the rundown. Very end, we talk about whatever, something that's been going on in your life, but it has slowly turned into what TV or movie show have I been watching lately. If you are me, the answer could be for the last 3 months, we are rewatching Gilmore Girls, and it would get boring after a while. So I just tell some kind of little anecdote that's been going on in my life, but to give you a little bit of time, Sean.
Yeah, well, also Kayla apparently lives in a small town that could be the setting of a sitcom, because it's always just the most wild things going on. So nice little bit of Southern flair to finish the show.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I have been ripping through the movies of Brian De Palma. People would know him from Scarface, and I think that really sets the tone for just like the wild weirdness of everything he's been doing. It felt like a good way to just distract myself on yesterday, Inauguration Day. So, yeah, watching a bunch of like weird murder movies from the 70s.
Sure. Love that. Alex.
I mean, speaking of school teaching, I've been binging Abbott Elementary. Love that
Oh,
show.
nice.
I am also a huge fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I've been since the very beginning, showing my age there because that's a show has been on for a while now. But I got to the crossover episode and I was just dying. I thought it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
That's awesome.
Of that. Despite, just kind of in general Inauguration Day, the one thing I do look forward to with every Inauguration Day, or really just any time that there's a bunch of like politicians in one room together, is that there's amazing memes. And George Bush has absolutely just taken the cake for me.
He's the king of it, man.
They're everywhere. His face is just everywhere, and it is just making me laugh at this point. I do look forward to it. During the Jimmy Carter funeral, there was something said between him and Obama that made its rounds for a while, and it just makes me laugh. He in general just makes me laugh.
Did you see at the Carter funeral, he was walking past Obama and he like gave him a little like chest punch. It was just the most like George Bush thing possible. He's say what you will about the politics, but he's like a genuinely very funny man.
He looks like he takes edibles and then they kick in at the perfect time at all of these events.
Yeah.
He's like the little cousin at the family get together who's just like off in a corner causing trouble. Like that's the energy he brings to the occasion.
The one that really got me was like born to be MLB commissioner, forced to do war crimes. It's the one that got me. It's fine. To all the people who are still watching at the very end of this, thank you so much. Give Alex a big welcome. Go down to Blue Sky. Go to League One Updater. Say hello. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you because we are so glad to have him. Just so much that we are excited for this season. We are planning yet another away day this year. That information is going to be coming out soon. We are so excited to do more of that. And we can't do that without you, our loyal listeners. And for the first and the final time tonight, how about Al?
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show.
The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist Podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see everyone again next time.